I was watering my roses when my phone rang. I wiped my hands and answered. My daughter-in-law's voice was flat and cold. "We got married yesterday. Only special people were invited." Then she hung up. 3 years, $33,000 in rent, groceries, and emergencies. All those Sunday dinners I cooked while they laughed in my living room. I set the phone down on the patio table. My hand didn't shake. I took a deep breath and smiled at the petunias. There was something they didn't know, something I'd kept to myself all this time. 2 days later, Lena called again. Her voice had changed. She needed money for overdue rent. She said it was urgent. I remembered her words about special people. I told her the same thing she told me. Then I called my lawyer. "My name is Margaret, and I was done being used." That morning, I made a decision that would change everything. What I discovered in my desk drawer would prove I wasn't the fool they thought I was, but they would find out soon enough, on their own terms, not mine. I sat at my kitchen table that evening and opened the drawer where I kept all my records. Bank statements, receipts, text messages I'd printed out. Every single transaction was there. I'd been organized my whole life. My late husband, Robert, used to joke that I could find a grocery receipt from 5 years ago if I needed to. He was right, and now I needed them. The first transfer was from September 3 years ago. $750 for their security deposit. Max had called me from the leasing office. His voice was tight with stress. "Mom, they want the money today or we lose the apartment. Lena's parents can't help. Please." I remember holding the phone between my shoulder and ear while I logged into my bank account. I could hear Lena crying in the background. Or at least I thought she was crying. I transferred the money in under 3 minutes. Max said, "Thank you," exactly once. Then he said he had to go. The line went dead before I could tell him I loved him. The second transfer was October. Rent was due and Max's paycheck had been delayed. $600. Then November. Lena's car broke down, and they needed $400 for repairs. December came with Christmas gifts I bought for both of them because they said money was tight. I spent $300 on a watch for Max and $200 on a necklace for Lena. In January, Lena's mother got sick and they needed plane tickets, $800. February brought another rent crisis. March was Lena's birthday dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. I paid the bill, $432 including tip. I kept going through the papers, April, May, June. Each month had something, a medical bill, an electric shutoff notice, new tires, work clothes for an interview, groceries when their food stamps ran out. The numbers climbed and climbed. I pulled out my calculator and added them carefully. Twice, then a third time because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. $33,417. That was the exact amount, not an estimate, not a rough guess. I had given them $33,417 in 3 years. I sat back in my chair and stared at that number on the calculator screen. My hands were shaking now, not from anger yet, from shock. How had I not noticed? How had I let it get this far? I thought about my own life during those 3 years. The dental work I'd postponed because it cost too much. The winter coat I wore with a broken zipper because buying a new one seemed wasteful. The book club membership I'd canceled to save $30 a month. I'd been living on Robert's pension and my small savings. Every dollar I sent to Max and Lena was a dollar I didn't spend on myself. I'd convinced myself that was what mothers do. We sacrifice. We go without. We make sure our children have what they need, but they hadn't needed it. That was what made my chest tight with something I couldn't name yet. They hadn't needed any of it. Max had a job. Lena worked part-time at a dental office. They weren't starving. They weren't homeless. They'd had money for a wedding, A wedding they'd planned and paid for and executed without telling me. A wedding where Lena's entire family was present. I'd seen the photos on Facebook before Lena blocked me. Her mother in a lavender dress, her father walking her down an aisle lined with white flowers, her 3 sisters as bridesmaids, 20 or 30 guests smiling at tables with fancy centerpieces. That cost money. Probably thousands. Maybe more than I'd spent on their rent last year. I closed the drawer and walked to the living room. The furniture was old but clean. The carpet had a stain near the couch from where Max had spilled juice when he was 7. I'd never replaced it. This house had been mine and Robert's for 41 years. We'd raised Max here. I'd hosted every birthday party, every graduation celebration, every holiday dinner. After Robert died 4 years ago, the house felt too big and too quiet. Having Max visit had helped. Having someone to cook for had given me purpose. But Max had only visited when he needed something. I could see that now. He'd come over with Lena, and they'd stay for Sunday dinner. I'd cook pot roast or chicken or lasagna. They'd eat and talk and laugh, mostly with each other. I'd ask about their week and get one-word answers. Fine, good, busy. Then Lena would mention the electric bill, or Max would bring up the car insurance, and somehow, by the end of the night, I'd be writing another check. Every single visit ended with them taking something from me: money, food in containers to take home, the old coffee maker I'd replaced, a lamp I wasn't using, my time, my energy, my hope that things would get better between us. I'd kept waiting for Max to turn back into the son I remembered. The little boy who used to hold my hand at the grocery store, the teenager who'd come to me when he was scared or hurt, the young man who'd called me every week when he first moved out. But that Max was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed the way I remembered. Maybe I'd built a story in my head about who my son was, and the real Max had been someone different all along. My phone rang again. I looked at the screen. Lena. I let it ring 4 times before I answered. Her voice was different this time. Soft, almost sweet. Margaret, hi. I'm so sorry I was short with you the other day. I was just overwhelmed with wedding stuff. You understand? I didn't say anything. So anyway, she continued, we have a little situation. Our rent is overdue. Like really overdue. The landlord is threatening to evict us. We need $1,200 by Friday, or we're out. I looked at the calculator still sitting on my kitchen table. The number was still there. $33,417. Margaret, are you there? I'm here, I said. So can you help us? It's really urgent. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I remembered her voice from 2 days ago. Only special people were invited. I thought about those words, how cold they'd sounded, how final. She hadn't said we had a small wedding or we eloped on a whim or we're sorry you couldn't be there. She'd said only special people were invited, which meant I wasn't special, which meant I wasn't wanted, which meant 3 years of checks and transfers and sacrifices had bought me nothing. Not even a phone call to tell me my only child was getting married. Margaret? Lena's voice had an edge now. Did you hear me? We need $1,200 by Friday. I heard you, I said, but I'm afraid I can't help. What? Why not? Because I only help special people, I said. And apparently I'm not special, so I'm guessing you're not special either. There was silence on the other end. Then Lena's voice came back sharp and high. Are you seriously throwing that in my face right now? We're about to be homeless. You should have thought about that before you got married without telling me, I said. You should have thought about that before you spent whatever you spent on a wedding and didn't save anything for rent. We didn't spend that much. Lena was almost yelling now. It was a small wedding, and it's none of your business anyway. You're right, I said. It's none of my business. And your rent isn't my business either, not anymore. You're unbelievable, Lena said. After everything we've done for you, I almost laughed. It came out as a sharp breath through my nose. Everything you've done for me? I said. Like what exactly? Like visiting you, like including you in our lives. You're lonely, Margaret. Everyone knows it. We were doing you a favor. Something cracked open inside me. Not anger yet. Something colder. I thought about every Sunday dinner, every time I'd cooked and cleaned and set the table nice, every time I'd listened to them talk about their friends and their plans and their problems, every time I'd offered advice they didn't take and money they always took. I'd thought they were coming to see me. But they'd been doing me a favor. They'd been pitying me. Don't call me again, I said. Don't come to my house. Don't ask me for anything. We're done. You can't be serious, Lena said. Max is your son. Then Max can call me himself, I said. But I'm not holding my breath. I hung up before she could respond. My hand was steady this time. I set the phone face down on the table and looked around my kitchen. The afternoon light was coming through the window over the sink. Everything looked the same as it had an hour ago. But something had shifted inside me. Something that had been bent for 3 years was straightening out. I picked up the phone again and scrolled through my contacts. I found the name I was looking for, James Weber, attorney at law. He'd handled Robert's estate after he died. He'd been patient and clear and kind. I'd kept his number in case I ever needed legal help again. I pressed call. The phone rang twice. Then a man's voice answered, Weber and Associates. This is James. Mr. Weber, I said, this is Margaret Chen. You helped me 4 years ago with my husband's will. Mrs. Chen, of course. I remember. How can I help you? I need advice, I said, about protecting myself from my family. There was a pause. Then he said, Can you come to my office tomorrow morning? Say 10 o'clock? I'll be there, I said. Bring any documentation you have, he said. Bank statements, texts, emails, anything that shows the pattern of what's been happening. I have everything, I said. Good, he said. We'll figure this out. I hung up and sat in the quiet. Outside, I could hear a dog barking, a car door closing, normal sounds from a normal afternoon. But nothing felt normal anymore. I'd just cut off my son and his wife. I'd just hired a lawyer. I just decided to stop being the person I'd been for 3 years. And I didn't feel guilty. That was the strangest part. I felt clear, like I'd been walking through fog and suddenly it had lifted. I spent the rest of that evening organizing my documents. I made copies of everything. Bank statements going back 3 full years. I printed out text messages from Max asking for money. I printed out Facebook photos of their wedding that I'd screenshotted before Lena blocked me. I put everything in a folder labeled Documentation. Then I put that folder in my bag for tomorrow's meeting. At 8 o'clock that night, my phone rang again. Max this time. I stared at his name on the screen. My son, my only child. The baby I'd carried and delivered and raised. The boy I'd loved more than anything in the world. I almost didn't answer, but I needed to hear what he would say. Mom, he said when I picked up. What the hell is wrong with you? Hello, Max, I said. Lena said you refused to help us with rent. She said you were cruel. She's crying right now because we might lose our apartment. I'm sorry she's upset, I said. But I'm not giving you any more money. Why not? His voice was angry, entitled, like I owed him something just for existing. Because you got married without telling me, I said. Because I've given you over $33,000 in 3 years, and you couldn't even invite me to your wedding. Because I'm done being treated like an ATM. It wasn't like that, Max said. The wedding was last minute. We didn't have time to tell everyone. You had time to invite Lena's whole family, I said. I saw the pictures. That's different. They live closer. They live 4 hours away, I said. I live 20 minutes from you. Try again. Mom, You're being ridiculous. So we didn't invite you to the wedding. Big deal. Get over it. Get over it? I repeated. Max, I've spent 3 years supporting you financially. I've cooked for you every week. I've helped with every crisis. And you think I should just get over being excluded from your wedding? We didn't exclude you, he said. We just didn't include everyone, which is the same thing, I said. And the fact that you don't see that tells me everything I need to know. What's that supposed to mean? It means I raised you better than this, I said. It means I taught you to respect people, to treat them with kindness, to show gratitude. And somewhere along the way, you forgot all of that. Or maybe you never learned it in the first place. Don't blame me for your feelings, Max said. That's manipulative. I'm not manipulating you, I said. I'm setting a boundary. I'm not giving you money anymore. I'm not hosting dinners anymore. I'm not available for emergencies anymore. If you want a relationship with me, you're going to have to act like you actually want one. So you're abandoning me, Max said. Great. Thanks, Mom. I'm not abandoning you, I said. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. He hung up without saying goodbye. I set the phone down and realized my hands were shaking again. But not from shock this time. From something else. Relief, maybe. Or freedom. I'd said what I needed to say. I'd told the truth. And the sky hadn't fallen. I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table. The house was quiet again. But it didn't feel empty anymore. It felt like mine. The next morning, I drove to Mr. Weber's office. It was in a small building downtown near the courthouse. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and magazines, and a receptionist who smiled when I walked in. I gave her my name, and she told me Mr. Weber would be right with me. He came out 3 minutes later. He was in his 60s with gray hair and glasses. He shook my hand and led me back to his office. It was lined with law books and had a big window that looked out onto the street. Mrs. Chen, he said, sitting behind his desk. Tell me what's going on. I pulled out my folder and set it on his desk. Then I told him everything. The 3 years of financial support. The wedding I wasn't invited to. The phone call from Lena asking for more money. My conversation with Max. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just laid out the facts. Mr. Weber listened without interrupting. He took notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and looked at me. This is financial exploitation, he said, clear as day. Can they do that? I asked. I mean legally? There's no law against asking your mother for money, he said. But there are patterns here that concern me. The amounts, the frequency, the manipulation. And now that you've cut them off, I'm worried about what they might do next. Like what? Like trying to access your accounts, he said. Like claiming you're not competent to manage your own finances. Like trying to get power of attorney or guardianship. They wouldn't do that, I said. Would they? Mr. Weber leaned forward. Mrs. Chen, people do a lot of things when money is involved, especially when they feel entitled to it. Your son and daughter-in-law have been depending on you financially for 3 years. That's a lot of money to suddenly lose access to. They're going to push back. So what do I do? First, he said, you protect your assets, change your bank passwords, set up alerts for any unusual activity. If you have joint accounts with anyone, close them and open new ones in your name only. Make sure all your legal documents are current. Your will, your power of attorney, your healthcare directive. Make sure they name people you trust. I don't have anyone else, I said. Max is my only child. Then we need to name an alternative, he said. A friend, a neighbor, your doctor. Anyone who isn't financially motivated to control your decisions. I thought about Eleanor next door. We'd been neighbors for 15 years. She'd brought me casseroles after Robert died. We'd talked over the fence about our gardens. She'd mentioned once that her daughter had stopped speaking to her over some family argument. I'd thought it was sad at the time. Now I wondered if Eleanor understood my situation better than I'd realized. "I have a neighbor," I said. "Eleanor. I trust her." "Good," Mr. Weber said. "We'll draw up new documents naming her as your backup. In the meantime, I want you to document everything. Every phone call with Max or Lena, every text message, every attempt to contact you. Write down dates and times and what was said. If they show up at your house, don't let them in. If they threaten you, call the police." "This feels extreme," I said. "I hope I'm wrong," he said. "I hope they respect your boundaries and leave you alone. But I've been doing this for 30 years, Mrs. Chen, and I've seen a lot of families fall apart over money. Better to be prepared." I left his office with a list of things to do: change passwords, update documents, install cameras. That last one surprised me. He'd suggested I put security cameras at my front and back doors. "Just in case," he'd said. "So you have a record of who comes and goes." I drove to the hardware store on my way home. I bought 2 cameras and a new deadbolt for my front door. The man at the counter showed me how the cameras worked. They connected to my phone and recorded everything. I could check them from anywhere. At home, I spent the afternoon installing everything. The cameras were easier than I expected. They stuck to the wall above each door and connected to my Wi-Fi. The deadbolt took longer. I had to watch a video on my phone to figure it out. But by 5 o'clock, I had a new lock on my front door and cameras watching both entrances. I felt safer. And a little bit paranoid. But Mr. Weber had been right. Better to be prepared. That night, I sat on my back porch and looked at my garden. The roses needed deadheading. The vegetable bed needed weeding. I'd been so busy worrying about Max and Lena that I'd let my own space go. I made a mental note to spend tomorrow working outside, to do something just for myself. My phone buzzed. A text from Max. "Mom, we need to talk." "This is getting out of hand." I typed back. "I have nothing more to say. Please respect my boundaries." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, his response came through. "Fine, but don't come crying to me when you're old and alone." I stared at those words. When you're old and alone. I was already 72. I was already alone. Robert had been gone for 4 years. I didn't have siblings. My parents were long dead. Max was supposed to be the person who'd be there for me, the person who'd make sure I was okay as I aged. And now he was using my future loneliness as a threat. I put the phone down and looked up at the sky. It was getting dark. Stars were starting to appear. I thought about what Max had said, about being old and alone, and I realized something. I'd rather be alone than be used. I'd rather have no family than have family that treated me this way. I went inside and made myself dinner. Just scrambled eggs and toast. Simple. I ate at the kitchen table and read a book while I chewed. After dinner, I washed my single plate and single fork and put them in the dish rack. Then I took a long bath with Epsom salts and went to bed early. I slept better than I had in weeks. The next few days were quiet. No calls from Max or Lena. No texts. I spent my time in the garden. I pulled weeds and trimmed bushes and planted new flowers. My back ached by the end of each day, but it was a good ache. The kind that comes from doing something productive. Eleanor came over on Thursday afternoon. She leaned on the fence between our yards and watched me work. "Your garden looks beautiful," she said. "Thank you," I said. "It needed attention." "Don't they all?" she said. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I heard yelling the other night, at your front door. I almost came over." "That was my son," I said. "We're having some difficulties." Eleanor nodded. "I'm sorry. Family is hard." "It is," I said. "If you need anything, she said. Let me know. I mean it. I'm right next door. Actually, I said, I do need something. Can I put you down as my emergency contact? For medical and legal stuff? Eleanor blinked. You don't have to do that. What about Max? Max and I aren't speaking right now, I said, and I need someone I can trust. Eleanor's eyes got a little wet. She nodded. Of course. I'd be honored. Thank you, I said. She reached over the fence and squeezed my hand. Then she went back inside. I kept working in the garden until the sun started to set. On Friday, I went back to Mr. Weber's office. I'd made an appointment to sign the new documents. Power of attorney and healthcare directive with Eleanor as my backup. A new will that left everything to charity instead of Max. Mr. Weber had drawn up all the papers. I read through them carefully before I signed. This is a big step, he said. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. If Max wanted to be in my will, he should have acted like he wanted me in his life. Fair enough, Mr. Weber said. I signed everything. Mr. Weber witnessed my signatures and put the documents in his safe. He gave me copies for my records. One more thing, he said. I think you should consider changing banks. If Max or Lena have any information about your accounts, they might try to access them or claim there's been fraud. It's easier if you just start fresh. Which bank do you recommend? I asked. He gave me the name of a credit union across town. I went there that afternoon. I opened a new checking and savings account. I transferred all my money from the old bank. The process took less than an hour. By the time I left, my finances were completely separate from anything Max or Lena might know about. I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the beauty salon. I got my hair cut and colored. I got my nails done. I bought a new lipstick. The woman at the salon asked if I was going somewhere special. I said no. I'm just taking care of myself. On my way home, I stopped at the bookstore. I bought 3 books I'd been wanting to read. Then I went to the coffee shop next door and ordered a fancy latte with extra foam. I sat at a table by the window and read for an hour. No one needed me. No one was waiting for me. I was just a woman in a coffee shop reading a book. It felt like freedom. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Max's car. My stomach dropped. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to decide what to do. Then I remembered the cameras. Whatever happened next would be recorded. I got out and walked to my front door. Max was sitting on my porch steps. He stood when he saw me. Mom, he said, we need to talk. I told you I didn't want to see you, I said. I know, but this is important. Can we go inside? No, I said. You can say whatever you need to say right here. Max looked frustrated. Fine. Lena and I are in trouble. Real trouble. We got evicted. We're staying with her parents, but it's temporary. We need help. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, but I can't help you. Can't or won't? Both, I said. You're really going to let us be homeless? Max's voice was rising. I'm your son. You're an adult, I said, with a job. You can figure it out. This is your fault, Max said. If you'd helped with the rent like you always do, we wouldn't be in this situation. No, I said, this is your fault. You spent money on a wedding and didn't save for rent. You treated me like I was disposable. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. Max's face turned red. You're a selfish old woman, he said. Dad would be ashamed of you. That stopped me cold. I thought about Robert, about what he would think if he could see this. His son yelling at his mother on her front porch. His son demanding money with no gratitude or respect. His son using his memory as a weapon. Your father, I said quietly, would be ashamed of you, not me. Max's mouth opened, then closed. He looked like he was going to cry or punch something. Instead, He turned and walked to his car. He got in and slammed the door. He backed out of my driveway too fast and drove away. I went inside and locked the new deadbolt. Then I sat on my couch and shook for 10 minutes. When I could breathe normally again, I checked the camera footage on my phone. It had recorded everything. Max arriving, our conversation, him leaving. I saved the video to my cloud storage, just in case. 2 weeks passed. No contact from Max or Lena. I started to think maybe they'd finally accepted my boundaries. I kept myself busy. I joined a gardening club at the community center. I met on Tuesdays with a group of women my age who loved plants as much as I did. They were kind and funny. We swapped cuttings and advice. No one asked me for money or favors. We just enjoyed each other's company. One of the women was named Patricia. She was 75 with white hair and laugh lines around her eyes. After our third meeting, she asked if I wanted to get lunch. We went to a diner downtown. Over sandwiches, she told me about her daughter who'd stolen from her. $20,000 over 2 years. Patricia had pressed charges. Her daughter was in jail now. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be," Patricia said. "Best decision I ever made." She needed to face consequences, and I needed to stop enabling her. I told Patricia about Max and Lena, about the wedding and the money and the eviction. She listened without judgment. "You did the right thing," she said when I finished. "It's hard, but necessary." "Does it get easier?" I asked. "Eventually," Patricia said. "You grieve the relationship you thought you had. Then you build a life that doesn't depend on them, and one day you realize you're happy. Actually happy, not pretending." I hoped she was right. That night, I came home to find my back door open. Not broken, just unlocked and standing ajar. My heart started racing. I pulled out my phone and checked the camera. The footage showed Max, Lena, and a man I didn't recognize walking up to my back door 3 hours ago. The man did something to the lock. It popped open. They went inside. I didn't go in. I called 911 from my car in the driveway. I told them someone had broken into my house. They said they'd send an officer. The police arrived 10 minutes later. 2 officers. They searched my house while I waited in the front yard. They came back out and said it was clear. No one was inside, but someone had definitely been there. We went inside together. My office was a mess. File cabinets open, papers everywhere. My desk drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor. They'd been looking for something. Documents, maybe? Bank statements? Legal papers? I showed the officers the camera footage. They watched Max and Lena and the unknown man break in. They took notes. They asked if I wanted to press charges. "Yes," I said. "I absolutely do." "Even against your son?" one officer asked. "Especially against my son," I said. They gave me a case number. They said a detective would follow up. They suggested I get better locks. I told them I'd just installed new ones. They looked at the back door and said these locks could be picked by anyone with basic skills. They recommended I get reinforced doors and a security system. After they left, I called Mr. Weber. It was almost 9 at night, but he answered. I told him what happened. "Don't clean anything up," he said. "Don't touch anything. I'm calling a locksmith right now. He'll come tonight and change all your locks. Top of the line. Unpickable. Then tomorrow you're getting a full security system installed. I'll arrange it." "Thank you," I said. "And Mrs. Chen?" "Document everything. Take photos of the mess. Save that camera footage. We're going to need it." I spent the next hour photographing every room, the chaos in my office, the papers scattered on the floor, the open file cabinets. I saved everything to the cloud. The locksmith arrived at 10:30. He changed the locks on both doors and installed reinforced strike plates. He said these locks would take an expert to pick, and even then, it would take time. I paid him $300. It was worth every penny. I didn't sleep much that night. I kept listening for sounds, Footsteps, doors opening. But nothing happened. The house stayed quiet. The next morning, a company came to install a security system, sensors on every door and window, a keypad by the front entrance, motion detectors inside. The whole thing connected to a monitoring service. If anyone tried to break in again, the police would be called automatically. The installer showed me how to use it. Arm it when I leave. Arm it when I go to bed. Disarm it when I come home. Simple. He gave me a panic button to keep on my nightstand. If I pressed it, the police would come immediately. I felt safer, but also sad that I needed all of this, that my own son had driven me to install security systems and cameras and reinforced locks. Mr. Weber called that afternoon. He said he'd filed for a restraining order against Max and Lena. It would keep them at least 500 feet away from me and my property. A hearing was scheduled for next week. In the meantime, he said, do not have any contact with them. If they call, don't answer. If they text, don't respond. If they show up, call the police. Let them dig their own hole. I promised I would. That evening, Eleanor came over with dinner. She'd made chicken soup and homemade bread. We ate together at my kitchen table. I told her everything that had happened, the break-in, the security system, the restraining order. Jesus, Margaret, she said. I'm so sorry. I'm just tired, I said. I'm tired of fighting. Then stop fighting, Eleanor said. Just live your life. They'll either come around or they won't. But either way, you deserve peace. She was right. I'd spent 3 years fighting for Max's attention and approval, fighting to be included, fighting to matter. And all that fighting had gotten me was exhausted and broken into. I decided to stop. The restraining order hearing was the following Tuesday. Mr. Weber represented me. Max and Lena showed up with their own lawyer, a young guy in a cheap suit. He tried to argue that I was being vindictive, that I was punishing them for having a private wedding, that the break-in was a misunderstanding. Mr. Weber pulled out the camera footage. He showed it to the judge. Max and Lena clearly visible. The unknown man picking my lock. All 3 of them entering without permission. He showed photos of my ransacked office. He presented the police report. The judge looked at Max and Lena. Can you explain what you were doing in your mother's house without permission? Lena's lawyer started to answer, but the judge cut him off. I asked them, not you. Max cleared his throat. We were worried about her. We thought she might be having memory issues. We were looking for documents to prove she needs help. What kind of documents? The judge asked. Medical records? Max said. Bank statements. Proof that she's not managing her affairs properly. And did you find any such proof? Max hesitated. Number. Because it doesn't exist, Mr. Weber said. Mrs. Chen is completely competent. She manages her own finances. She makes her own medical decisions. She's mentally sharp and physically healthy. What my client's son and daughter-in-law were really looking for was access to her money. They've been financially dependent on her for 3 years. She cut them off. And now they're retaliating. The judge looked at the paperwork in front of him. Then he looked at Max and Lena. I'm granting the restraining order. You're to stay 500 feet away from Mrs. Chen and her property. No calls, no texts, no emails, no contact through third parties. If you violate this order, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? Max's face was white. Yes, Your Honor. The judge signed the order. Mr. Weber got a copy. We left the courthouse together. How are you feeling? He asked. Relieved, I said. And sad. That's normal, he said. You just cut off your son. It's one of the hardest things a parent can do. He deserved it, I said. He did, Mr. Weber agreed, but that doesn't make it easy. I went home and sat in my garden. The roses were blooming, red and pink and yellow. I'd planted them the year Robert died. They'd been scraggly at first, but now they were full and healthy. It had taken time and care and patience. Maybe I was like the roses, scraggly after trauma, but capable of blooming again with the right conditions. I spent the next few weeks settling into my new life. I went to the gardening club every Tuesday. I had lunch with Patricia and Eleanor. I read books. I took walks. I cooked meals I actually enjoyed instead of cooking what Max liked. I didn't hear from Max or Lena. The restraining order was working. But then my phone rang one morning. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Mrs. Chen? A woman's voice, formal and professional. Yes? This is Karen Schmidt from Adult Protective Services. I received a report of concern about your welfare. I need to schedule a home visit. My stomach dropped. A report from who? I can't disclose that information. But I need to come assess your living situation. Are you available tomorrow at 10? I'm fine, I said. There's no problem. I'm sure there isn't, Ms. Schmidt said, but I still need to do the visit. It's protocol. I called Mr. Weber as soon as I hung up. He swore under his breath. They're trying another angle, he said. They can't contact you directly because of the restraining order. So they called APS and made a false report. Probably claimed you're being neglected or living in unsafe conditions. What do I do? Let her come, he said. Show her your clean house. Show her your full refrigerator. Show her that you're healthy and competent. I'll be there with you. Miss Schmidt arrived the next morning at exactly 10. She was in her 50s with a clipboard and a tired expression. Mr. Weber was already at my house. We invited Miss Schmidt inside. She looked around my living room. Clean floors, dusted furniture, fresh flowers on the coffee table. She walked through the kitchen. The counters were clear. The dishes were washed. The refrigerator was full of fresh food. She asked to see my bedroom and bathroom. Both were tidy and well-maintained. Mrs. Chen, she said, sitting down at my kitchen table, can you tell me about your daily routine? I wake up around 7, I said. I make breakfast. I read the newspaper. I work in my garden most mornings. I have lunch with friends twice a week. I go to my gardening club on Tuesdays. I cook dinner for myself. I read before bed. Do you have any medical conditions I should know about? High blood pressure, I said, controlled with medication. I see my doctor every 3 months for checkups. And you manage your own medications? Yes, I said. I have a pill organizer. I fill it every Sunday. Ms. Schmidt made notes on her clipboard. She looked at Mr. Weber. And you are? James Weber. Mrs. Chen's attorney. Why does she need an attorney? Because her son and daughter-in-law have been harassing her, Mr. Weber said. They broke into her house 2 weeks ago. There's a restraining order in place, and now they've apparently filed a false report with your agency to continue their harassment. Ms. Schmidt's expression didn't change. Is that true, Mrs. Chen? Yes, I said. My son and his wife have been financially dependent on me for 3 years. I cut them off after they excluded me from their wedding. They're angry about losing access to my money. Ms. Schmidt wrote more notes. Then she looked up at me. Mrs. Chen, I don't see any evidence of neglect or unsafe living conditions. Your home is clean and well-maintained. You appear healthy and mentally competent. I'm going to close this case as unfounded. Thank you, I said. However, she continued, I want you to know that if you ever do need help, you can call our office. We have resources for seniors, meal delivery, transportation, home health aides. You don't have to be in crisis to ask for support. I appreciate that, I said. She left a few minutes later. Mr. Weber and I sat at the kitchen table. They're escalating, he said. First the break-in, now a false APS report. I'm worried about what comes next. What else can they do? I asked. They have a restraining order. They can't come near me. They can file for guardianship, Mr. Weber said. They can claim you're not competent to manage your own affairs. If a judge believes them, they could get control of your finances, your medical decisions, everything. But I am competent, I said. You saw Miss Schmidt. She said so herself. I know, Mr. Weber said, but guardianship cases can be tricky. All they need is one doctor to say you seem confused, one witness to say you forgot something, one piece of evidence that makes you look incapable, and suddenly you're in front of a judge defending your own autonomy. So what do I do? We prepare, he said. I want you to get a complete medical evaluation, physical and psychiatric. I want documentation that you're healthy and sharp. I want witnesses who can testify on your behalf. Neighbors, friends, anyone who sees you regularly and can vouch for your competence. I'll do whatever you think is necessary, I said. Good, he said. I'll set up the appointments. 2 days later, I went to see my primary care doctor. Dr. Allen had been my physician for 15 years. She did a complete physical exam. Blood pressure, reflexes, heart and lungs, blood work. Everything came back normal for a woman my age. You're in excellent health, Margaret, she said. Better than most 72-year-olds I see. I need you to document that, I said. In writing. I need proof that I'm competent to manage my own life. Dr. Allen frowned. Is someone saying you're not? I told her about Max and Lena, about the break-in and the APS report and Mr. Weber's concerns about guardianship. Her expression got serious. I'll write a letter, she said. A detailed letter stating that you're physically and mentally capable of independent living. And if anyone challenges that, I'll testify in court. Thank you, I said. The psychiatric evaluation was harder. Dr. Moore was a psychologist who specialized in elder care. Mr. Weber had recommended her. She asked me questions for 2 hours. Memory tests, problem-solving exercises, questions about my mood and my daily life and my relationships. At the end, she sat back and smiled. Mrs. Chen, you're cognitively intact. Your memory is excellent. Your reasoning is sound. You show no signs of dementia or impairment. In fact, you score better than average for your age group. Can you put that in a report? I asked. Already planning on it, she said. I left her office feeling validated, but also angry, that I had to prove I was competent, that my own son had driven me to get psychiatric evaluations to defend my sanity. Mr. Weber collected all the medical reports. He also asked me to make a list of people who could be witnesses. I wrote down Eleanor, Patricia from Gardening Club, Dr. Allen, the woman at the bank who'd helped me open my new accounts, anyone who'd seen me functioning normally. Then we waited. 3 weeks later, the papers arrived. Max and Lena had filed for guardianship. They claimed I was suffering from dementia, that I'd been making irrational decisions, that I'd changed my locks and installed security cameras because of paranoid delusions, that I'd cut them off financially because I was confused about money. The petition included statements from 2 witnesses. One was a pharmacist at the drugstore I used. He claimed I'd seemed confused when picking up my prescriptions. The other was a neighbor I barely knew. He said he'd seen me wandering around my yard at odd hours, talking to myself. Both statements were lies, or at least distortions. I'd asked the pharmacist a question about a new medication once, and I talked to my plants sometimes while I gardened. Neither of those things meant I was incompetent. Mr. Weber read through the petition carefully. Then he looked at me. This is what I was afraid of. They've manufactured evidence. Found people willing to say you seem confused. It's not strong evidence. But it's enough to get us in front of a judge. When's the hearing? I asked. 4 weeks from now. We spent those 4 weeks preparing. Mr. Weber interviewed all my witnesses. He organized all my medical records. He put together a timeline of Max and Lena's financial exploitation. He documented every dollar I'd given them, every phone call asking for money, every text message with excuses and emergencies. He also had me keep a daily journal, what I did each day, what I ate, who I talked to. He wanted to show a pattern of normal, independent living. I wrote in the journal every night. Today I weeded the vegetable garden, had lunch with Patricia, went to the bank to deposit a check, made salmon for dinner, read 2 chapters of my book. It was boring, but it was proof. Patricia and Eleanor came over one evening to talk strategy. We sat in my living room drinking tea. "Are you scared?" Eleanor asked. "Terrified," I said. "What if the judge believes them? What if I lose control of my own life?" "That's not going to happen," Patricia said. "You have medical evidence, you have witnesses, you have a paper trail showing they exploited you financially. No judge is going to give them guardianship." "I hope you're right," I said. "We are," Eleanor said. "You're going to win this, and when you do, they'll finally leave you alone." The morning of the hearing, I dressed carefully. A navy blue suit, pearl earrings Robert had given me for our 30th anniversary, low heels. I wanted to look confident and put together, not confused or vulnerable. Mr. Weber met me at the courthouse. We went through security and took the elevator to the 5th floor. The courtroom was small, wood paneling and fluorescent lights. Max and Lena were already there with their lawyer, the same young man from the restraining order hearing. They didn't look at me. Judge Miller came out at exactly 9 o'clock. She was a black woman in her 50s with glasses and a no-nonsense expression. Everyone stood until she sat down. The hearing lasted 4 hours. Max and Lena's lawyer went first. He called his witnesses. The pharmacist got on the stand and testified that I'd seemed confused about my medications. Under cross-examination, Mr. Weber got him to admit he'd only spoken to me once, and that confusion about a new medication was normal, and that he'd been contacted by Max and asked to make a statement. "Did Max offer you anything in exchange for your testimony?" Mr. Weber asked. The pharmacist hesitated. He said he'd appreciate it, that his mother needed help sometimes, and he understood how hard it was. "So, he appealed to your sympathy," Mr. Weber said, "and you agreed to exaggerate a single interaction into evidence of dementia." "I didn't exaggerate," the pharmacist said, but he looked uncomfortable. The neighbor testified next. He said he'd seen me in my yard multiple times acting strangely, talking to no one, wandering around in circles, sometimes late at night. Mr. Weber asked him when these incidents occurred. The neighbor gave vague answers. A few months ago, maybe longer. He wasn't sure. "Did you ever speak to Mrs. Chen during these incidents?" Mr. Weber asked. "No," the neighbor said. "Did you ever call Adult Protective Services or the police because you were concerned?" "No." "So you allegedly witnessed someone with severe dementia wandering around confused, and you did nothing to help?" "I minded my own business," the neighbor said. "Until Max Chen asked you to make a statement," Mr. Weber said. "How much is he paying you?" "Objection," the other lawyer said. "Sustained," Judge Miller said. But she was looking at the neighbor with skepticism. Max testified next. He talked about how I'd changed, how I used to be warm and welcoming, how I'd suddenly become cold and paranoid, how I'd cut him off without explanation, how I'd installed cameras and changed my locks, how I'd refused to see him or speak to him. "These aren't the actions of a rational person," he said. "My mother is scared and confused. She needs help, and I'm trying to give her that help." Mr. Weber stood up for cross-examination. "Mr. Chen, how much money has your mother given you in the past 3 years?" Max looked at his lawyer. "I don't know exactly. Approximately. A few $1,000s. Mr. Weber pulled out a document. "According to these bank records, which your mother has provided, she gave you $33,417 over 3 years. Does that sound accurate?" Max's face went red. "If she says so. And when did she stop giving you money?" "After the wedding. The wedding she wasn't invited to?" "It was a small wedding," Max said. We couldn't invite everyone, but you invited your wife's entire family, Mr. Weber said. Parents, siblings, grandparents, approximately 30 people based on the photos. Yet you couldn't invite your only mother who'd given you over $30,000. Max didn't answer. And 2 days after the wedding, your wife called Mrs. Chen asking for rent money, correct? We were in a difficult situation, Max said. And when Mrs. Chen refused, you broke into her house, correct? We were worried about her, Max said. You broke into her house? Mr. Weber repeated. With a locksmith, and you ransacked her office? Looking for what exactly? Documents, Max said quietly. To prove she needed help. Or to prove she had money you wanted access to, Mr. Weber said. That's not true, Max said. Your Honor, Mr. Weber said, turning to the judge. The evidence is clear. Mrs. Chen is not suffering from dementia or any cognitive impairment. She's suffering from financial exploitation by her son and daughter-in-law. When she set boundaries, they retaliated. First with a break-in, then with a false APS report. Now with this guardianship petition. This is not about helping Mrs. Chen. This is about controlling her assets. Judge Miller made notes. Mr. Weber called his witnesses next. Dr. Allen testified about my excellent physical health. Dr. Moore testified about my psychiatric evaluation and normal cognitive function. Eleanor testified about our friendship and my independent living. Patricia testified about our gardening club and my active social life. The woman from the bank testified that I'd opened new accounts competently, that I'd understood all the paperwork, that I'd asked good questions, that I'd seemed sharp and organized. Finally, Mr. Weber called me to the stand. I was nervous, but I kept my voice steady. He asked me about my daily routine. I described it in detail. He asked me about my finances. I explained my budget, my savings, my pension. He asked me why I'd cut off Max and Lena. I told the truth. They excluded me from their wedding after 3 years of financial support. They treated me like I was disposable. I decided to protect myself. And the security cameras and new locks? He asked. After they broke into my house, I said, I needed to feel safe in my own home. Do you believe you're suffering from dementia or any mental impairment? No, I said. I believe I'm a woman who finally stood up for herself. And my son didn't like it. The other lawyer cross-examined me. He tried to make me seem forgetful. He asked me what I'd had for breakfast 3 days ago. I couldn't remember exactly. He acted like that was proof of dementia. Can you remember what you had for breakfast 3 days ago? Mr. Weber asked him during redirect. The lawyer didn't answer. Judge Miller called a recess. We waited in the hallway for 90 minutes. I sat on a bench between Eleanor and Patricia. Neither of them said much. They just sat with me. That was enough. When we went back in, Judge Miller had made her decision. She looked at Max and Lena. I've reviewed all the evidence, she said. The medical evaluations, the witness testimony, the financial records, and I'm denying the petition for guardianship. Relief flooded through me. Eleanor grabbed my hand. Mrs. Chen is clearly competent to manage her own affairs, Judge Miller continued. She's physically healthy. She's mentally sharp. She has an active social life and a support system. The evidence of dementia or impairment is non-existent. What I do see is a pattern of financial exploitation. Mrs. Chen gave her son over $33,000. When she stopped, he retaliated. This guardianship petition is not about helping Mrs. Chen. It's about accessing her money. I'm denying it. And I'm ordering Mr. Chen and Mrs. Chen Jr. to pay Mrs. Chen's legal fees. This petition was filed in bad faith. She banged her gavel. Case dismissed. Mr. Weber shook my hand. Eleanor and Patricia hugged me. We walked out of the courthouse together. Max and Lena were standing by their car. Max looked at me. His face was empty. No anger, no sadness. Just blank. I didn't say anything to him. There was nothing left to say. That night, Patricia and Eleanor took me to dinner. We went to a nice restaurant downtown. We ordered wine and steak and dessert. We celebrated. "You did it," Patricia said, raising her glass. "You stood up to them. You won." "We all won," I said. "I couldn't have done this without you." "That's what friends are for," Eleanor said. I realized I'd been thinking about family wrong my whole life. I'd thought family meant blood, people you were born to or related to by marriage. But family was really just people who showed up, people who supported you, people who cared whether you were okay. Eleanor and Patricia were more family to me than Max had been in years. The next week, I made a decision. I put my house on the market. It was too big for one person, too full of memories, too much maintenance. I needed something smaller, something that was just mine. The house sold in 3 weeks. A young family with 2 kids. They loved the garden. They loved the big backyard. They promised to take care of the roses. I found an apartment in a building near downtown. 2 bedrooms, one for me and one for guests. A small balcony where I could grow herbs and flowers. A community room where residents met for coffee and book clubs and game nights. A secure entrance with a doorman. I moved in on a Saturday in June. Eleanor and Patricia helped me unpack. We set up my furniture and hung my pictures and organized my kitchen. By evening, the apartment felt like home. That night, I sat on my balcony and looked out at the city. Lights were coming on in buildings. Cars moved through the streets below. Somewhere out there, Max and Lena were living their lives without me, and I was living mine without them. I didn't feel angry anymore, just free. I started doing things I'd always wanted to do, but never had time for. I took a watercolor painting class at the community center. I joined a book club that met every Thursday. I volunteered at the public library shelving books and helping people find what they needed. I reconnected with my sister Diana. She lived 2 states away, and we hadn't talked much in recent years. Life had gotten busy. But I called her one evening and we talked for 2 hours. She told me about her grandchildren. I told her about Max and the guardianship case and my new apartment. "I always thought something was off with Max," Diana said. "Even when he was young. He was charming, but cold. You know what I mean?" "I do now," I said. "I'm sorry you went through all that," Diana said. "But I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." "Thank you," I said. "Come visit me," Diana said. "Stay for a week. We'll go to the beach and drink wine and catch up properly." "I will," I said, and I meant it. 3 months after the guardianship hearing, I was at the grocery store when I saw Lena. She was in the produce section holding a head of lettuce. She saw me at the same time. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she walked over. "Margaret," she said, "can we talk?" "The restraining order expired last month," she said, "and I wanted to apologize. For everything. We were wrong. I was wrong. I didn't say anything." "We're in therapy now," Lena said. "Max and me, working on our issues. And one of the things we're working on is how we treated you. We were entitled. We used you. And I'm sorry." "I appreciate the apology," I said. "But it doesn't change anything." "I know," Lena said. "I'm not asking for money or help or anything. I just wanted you to know that we realize what we did. And we're sorry." "Okay," I said. "Is there any chance we could rebuild our relationship?" Lena asked. "Maybe have coffee sometime? Just talk?" "I don't think so," I said. "Too much has happened. Too much hurt. I'm in a good place now, and I want to stay there." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I understand," she said. "I just wanted to try." She walked away. I finished my shopping and went home. I thought about her apology. It had seemed genuine. But I also knew that people apologize for lots of reasons. Sometimes because they're actually sorry. Sometimes because they want something. Sometimes because they think it's what they're supposed to do. I didn't know which kind of apology Lena's was, and I realized I didn't care. Whether she was truly sorry or not didn't matter anymore. I'd moved on. I'd built a life that didn't include her or Max, and I liked that life. I thought about forgiveness. People always say you should forgive, that holding on to anger hurts you more than the other person, that you need to let go to be free. But I wasn't holding on to anger. I'd let the anger go months ago. I just didn't want Max and Lena in my life anymore. That wasn't unforgiveness. That was wisdom. That was self-protection. That was recognizing that some relationships are toxic, and the healthiest thing you can do is walk away. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I'd learned that. You can forgive someone and still choose not to have them in your life. You can wish them well from a distance. You can hope they grow and change. But you don't have to stick around to watch. I forgave Max and Lena. I forgave them for using me, for excluding me, for trying to control me. I forgave them because holding on to resentment would only hurt me. But I didn't want a relationship with them. And that was okay. 6 months after I moved into my apartment, I took Diana up on her invitation. I flew out to visit her for a week. We stayed at her house near the ocean. We walked on the beach every morning. We drank wine on her porch every evening. We talked about our lives, our regrets, our hopes. One night, Diana asked me if I ever missed Max. Sometimes, I said. I miss who I thought he was. I miss the little boy who loved me. But that little boy grew into a man I don't recognize. So I guess I'm not really missing Max. I'm missing an idea of Max that maybe never existed. Diana nodded. That makes sense, she said. We do that as parents. We see what we want to see. We remember the good and forget the bad. Until we can't anymore. Did you ever have to cut anyone off? I asked. My oldest daughter, Diana said. She was addicted to pills, stole from me multiple times. I tried to help her for years, but eventually I realized I was enabling her. So I stopped. Told her I loved her, but I couldn't have her in my life until she got clean. That was 12 years ago. Did she get clean? Eventually, Diana said. She's been sober for 6 years now. We have a relationship again. Not like it was before, but something real. Do you regret cutting her off? No, Diana said. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. But it was right. She needed to hit bottom, and I needed to save myself. We sat in silence for a while. The ocean waves crashed against the shore. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. You did the right thing too, Diana said. With maximum. You know that, right? I do, I said. It just took me a long time to get there. That's okay, Diana said. Better late than never. When I got back home, I felt lighter. The trip had been exactly what I needed. Time away. Time with someone who understood. Time to reflect on how far I'd come. I settled back into my routine. Painting class on Mondays, gardening club on Tuesdays, book club on Thursdays, volunteering at the library on Fridays, lunch with Eleanor or Patricia whenever we could manage it. My days were full, not in a stressful way, in a good way, in a purposeful way. One afternoon at the library, a woman came in looking lost. She was around my age, maybe a little younger. She asked me where the large print books were. I showed her. We started talking. Her name was Ruth. She'd just moved to town to be near her daughter. But her daughter was busy with work and kids and didn't have much time for her. Ruth seemed lonely. I told her about the book club, about the gardening club, about the painting class. I gave her my phone number and told her to call if she ever wanted company. She called the next week. We met for coffee, then lunch. Then she came to book club with me. Within a month, Ruth was part of our friend group. She fit right in. Watching Ruth reminded me of myself a year ago. Lonely, trying to find purpose, building a life around other people instead of building a life for herself. I was glad I could help her avoid some of the mistakes I'd made. On my 73rd birthday, Eleanor and Patricia threw me a party. They invited everyone from the gardening club and the book club and the painting class. 25 people showed up at my apartment with food and drinks and presents. We played games and told stories and laughed until my stomach hurt. At one point, I stood in my living room looking around at all these people. None of them were related to me by blood, but they were my family. They'd shown up. They cared about me. They celebrated me. Not because they wanted something from me, just because they liked me. That was what I'd been missing my whole life. Unconditional love. Love that didn't depend on what I could give or do. Love that just existed because I existed. I thought about Max. I wondered if he'd remembered my birthday. Probably not. And that was okay. His absence didn't hurt the way it used to. I'd filled the space he'd left with better people, with real relationships, with genuine connection. Patricia stood up and made a toast. "To Margaret," she said, "the bravest woman I know. She stood up to her family. She reclaimed her life. She built something beautiful from the ashes. We're lucky to know her." Everyone raised their glasses. "To Margaret," they said in unison. I felt tears in my eyes, but they were good tears, happy tears, grateful tears. "Thank you," I said. "All of you. You saved my life. You probably don't know that. But you did. You showed me what real family looks like, and I'm so grateful." We spent the rest of the evening eating cake and dancing to music from my phone. Eleanor did a silly dance that made everyone laugh. Ruth told jokes. Patricia taught us a card game. It was perfect. After everyone left, I cleaned up my apartment. I washed dishes and put away leftovers and swept the floor. I was tired, but happy. The kind of tired that comes from a good day, from joy instead of stress. I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea and looked out at the city. It was late. Most of the lights in the buildings were off. The streets were quiet. I thought about the last year, everything that had happened, the wedding I wasn't invited to, the break-in, the guardianship case, the move to this apartment, the new friends, the new life. I'd lost my son, but I'd found myself. And that trade, painful as it was, had been worth it. I opened my journal and wrote the last entry I would ever write in it. Today, I turned 73. I had a party with my friends. 25 people came. We laughed and ate and celebrated. No one asked me for money. No one made me feel small. No one treated me like I was disposable. I was surrounded by love. Real love. The kind that doesn't keep score. I used to think my purpose was to take care of Max, to make sure he was okay, to sacrifice so he could thrive. But that was never my purpose. My purpose is to live, to grow, to find joy, to build relationships that nourish me instead of drain me, to be more than just someone's mother or someone's bank account, to be Margaret, fully and completely myself. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe Max will change. Maybe he'll realize what he lost. Maybe one day we'll have a relationship again. Or maybe we won't. And either way, I'll be okay. Because I've learned the most important lesson of my life. I am enough, just as I am, without giving anything, without sacrificing anything, without being useful to anyone. I am enough. And that's the truest thing I know. I closed the journal and set it aside. I wouldn't need it anymore. I didn't need to document my competence. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I was free. The next morning, I woke up early. I made coffee and sat on my balcony watching the sunrise. The sky turned from black to purple to pink to orange to blue. A new day, a fresh start. I had plans. I was going to take another painting class, a more advanced one. I wanted to learn watercolor landscapes. I was going to visit Diana again in a few months. Maybe I'd even plan a trip somewhere I'd never been. Paris, maybe, or Ireland. Somewhere beautiful and far away. I was going to keep volunteering at the library, keep going to my clubs, keep having lunch with my friends, keep building this life I'd created. And I was going to do something I'd been thinking about for months. I was going to donate part of my money to organizations that helped elderly people escape financial abuse. I wanted to help other people in situations like mine. People whose families exploited them. People who needed legal help or financial counseling, or just someone to believe them. I called Mr. Weber that afternoon and told him my plan. He thought it was excellent. He helped me set up donations to 3 different organizations: Adult Protective Services, Legal Aid for Seniors, a nonprofit that provided free financial counseling. It felt good to take the pain I'd experienced and turn it into something helpful, to make sure other people didn't have to go through what I'd gone through alone. A few weeks later, I got a letter from one of the organizations. They thanked me for my donation. They told me about a woman they'd helped with my money. She was 81. Her grandson had been stealing from her. With the free legal help, she'd gotten a restraining order and changed her will. She was safe now. I cried when I read that letter, because I knew exactly how that woman felt. The fear, the betrayal, the relief of finally being protected. My pain had purpose now. It had helped someone. And that made all of it mean something. I put the letter in a drawer where I kept important things. Next to my medical evaluations. Next to the court documents from the guardianship case. Next to photos of Eleanor and Patricia and Ruth and Diana. Evidence of my life. The hard parts and the good parts, all mixed together. That evening, I made myself dinner. Just a simple pasta with vegetables. I ate slowly, savoring each bite. I wasn't rushing. I wasn't cooking for anyone else. I was just being present in the moment. After dinner, I called Diana. We talked for an hour about nothing important. Her garden, my painting class, a book we'd both read. It was easy and comfortable, the way family should be. Before we hung up, Diana said, "I'm proud of you, Margaret. You know that, right?" "I know," I said. "Thank you." "Love you," she said. "Love you too," I said. I sat on my couch after the call and felt complete. Not perfect, not without pain, but complete, whole, like all the pieces of my life had finally fallen into place. I was 73 years old. I'd lost my husband. I'd lost my son. I'd lost the life I thought I was supposed to have. But I'd gained something better. I'd gained myself, my autonomy, my dignity, my freedom. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Not for Max's approval. Not for family harmony. Not for the illusion of closeness that had never been real anyway. I'd trade nothing for the life I had now. This small apartment, these real friends, these quiet mornings and purposeful days, this peace. I looked around my living room, the painting I'd done last week hanging on the wall, the flowers Eleanor had brought me yesterday in a vase on the table, the book from book club sitting on the coffee table with my reading glasses on top. This was my life, mine alone, built by me, for me. And it was enough. More than enough. It was everything.